method like I just described. What's your normal way to do things, Joe?
Yeah, first thing I wanted to tell Ian that it is you have to bang your head against the wall and learn new things to get ahead on that part. So when you really want to understand how something works, you are right on track. So keep up with it. We've all had to bang our heads on this and how do you do this? How do you do this? And you're on the right track. So keep going on that way. As for the steps that I do, the steps that I do are mostly going to be on XP related. So if you're running on a Windows 7, it's a little bit different. But if you're still using an XP, if you're still supporting uh, a user that has Windows XP, one of the things that I do, Internet Explorer, you know how you have that delete keys or delete your temporary history button and everything?
Yes.
That doesn't work worth a flip. It leaves so much junk out there still, and I don't understand why Microsoft just cannot seem to get that wrapped around their heads. I don't have this problem with Firefox. I don't have this problem with Chrome. Just seems to be with Internet Explorer.
Right.
Unfortunately, at our shop, Internet Explorer has to be used because it's mandated on GM products and such.
It's lame.
Yeah, well, you know. But one of the tools that I do, and it's a little tricky. I'll try to see if I can. I made a note for myself to put it up on my website. But you have to actually go to you have to actually unhide certain folders, unhide folders on your my computer, and then be able to drill down into the local settings and go into the temp folder. Clean out everything that's in the temp folder. And again, don't try to, I'll write all these things down on the website here. But then there are, believe it or not, there are 2 hidden folders that Microsoft doesn't want you to see underneath that temp folder. Even though you're looking at temp folder and you say unhide this,
Right.
you need to look at, you have your temp folder, and then you have right there a temp folder, you have temporary internet files, and it has to be capitalized and spaced properly. Microsoft. And then under temporary internet files, / you have another one that is content.ie5. Again, has to be capitalized in the proper places. Once you clean out the things and they're in those folders, you have now cleaned out almost every hiding place except for one that viruses and malware can hide, that normally where they hide.
Right.
The last thing is that they like to hide in the system restore folders because antiviruses sometimes don't scan those folders. You know what I'm talking about, the system restore?
Yeah, which is a shame because I love to use system restore. That's usually it was my first point of attack. See if I could restore back to the point before the virus happened. And it worked a lot. So, but yeah, and so that's why people love deleting all the system restore points. I'm like, no, I like them. But
no,
if they're infected, I guess you got to get rid of them.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, well, thank you for the email, Ian. Yeah, definitely keep going. The best way to learn how to do something is just crash course. You learn. I mean, let's just say the fastest way to learn how to do something is crash course. So crash away. If you're bright, you won't get burned hardly at all. So keep going.
And use the forums. People are out there. They love to help you. So ask a question in the forums.
Totally. Google is your friend. Chad says the information that the tech you had on your show gave about downgrading hard drives from Vista or 7 to XP is not correct information. It may work for him on certain machines, but not all. The true fix is to go into the BIOS and turn off the SATA drive emulation and set it to off. And you can install any OS without removing a hard drive or any other issues, just so you know. That's in reference to Podnutz Daily number 262. When we were talking about that, I don't remember it exactly, but if you were listening to 262 and you had a question about that, Chad just wanted to set the record straight here. Thanks, Chad. This is from Carrie Holzman. You guys might know Carrie from Tech Vets, Computer America. He says, to answer a few questions during shows, let's see which one he's talking about. When people were having problems installing Service Pack 3, it was either show 298, 299, or 300. I'm not sure which one it is, guys. Sorry. He says he remembers that problem. He remembers it because he helped discover the problem when it first appeared. He says, basically, HP imaged all their Intel and AMD PCs with the same image. This created a file on the image for Intel PCs called Intel ppm.sys in one of the Windows file folders, and it worked fine until you installed SP3, at which point you'd get blue screen of death. Of course, if you have not unchecked automatically restart in the system properties of the PC, you may not ever see the blue screen of death since it appears and then the computer restarts immediately. Carrie does have a link. It's blog.tiensivu.com. It's a long URL, but it's blog.tiensivu.com. tiensivu.com. Just do a search for post SP3 fix for XP for Intel ppm.sys. Something like that. You'll find it. Anyway, we then talked about Dial-A-Fix and how we loved to use that program, but we weren't sure if it was still used in Vista and 7. That was another tool I forgot to mention, Dial-A-Fix. Anyway, Carrie says, I actually learned that tool from Carrie, and he says, as for Dial-A-Fix, the developer was a lead PC tech for a Florida-based PC repair company. Dial-A-Fix automates the re-registering of certain DLLs used as common fixes for Windows Update IE and checks for registry permission issues. The developer has long since abandoned the project since he got sick and tired of abusive, demanding, and unappreciative and cheap customers day in and day out. That's in quotes. He says, and he switched careers, and now he's in finance. The program never worked with Vista or 7 and never will unless someone adopts it and takes it over. It will also break IE7 and IE8 if you try to apply the IE fixes that only work for IE6. Bottom line, it still has limited use, but be careful with it. He says, here's his new favorite utility to run safely on Windows XP or Vista 7. I'll show that in a second. Let me pull it up. He's got a link here. His new favorite tool looks like Computer Repair Web Design Help Tips blog. So it is TFC, which stands for Temp File Cleaner, by Old Timer. It cleans temp files from Windows. So do a search for TFC Temp File Cleaner. You will find it. That's his new tool. Check it out. It's a site called johnsonyip.com. johnsonyip.com. Okay. Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it very much. And I think there's a second. Okay, last thing on Carrie, then I think we're running out of time. We might have to end off here. We might do one or two more emails. He had a clarification email. He says, okay, just to clarify my explanation below, before Service Pack 3 came out, I was able to clone Windows XP from an Intel to an AMD PC and vice versa without any problems. After Service Pack 3 came out, if I tried to move an XP with Service Pack 3 from an Intel system to an AMD system, the machine wouldn't boot. I did some testing in my office and I found the file Intel ppm.sys, and I deleted it, and the problem went away. Soon after I started hearing about HP computers failing Service Pack 3, I read a news article that HP used the same OS image for their Intel machines as their AMD systems. So only HP systems with AMD processors had this problem. There were several fixes from removing the file, like I did, to editing the registry, to running an update. I thought it was easy to just delete the file, just to boot to a Knoppix or Ultimate Boot CD and then delete the file. It's been a while since I've heard of this problem, and I'm back to cloning systems from Intel to AMD and AMD to Intel without any issues. So I'm guessing Microsoft addressed this in an update in some way, but I'm not certain. All I know is I haven't seen this in a very long time. That's from Carrie. Thank you very much, Carrie. We do have so many emails here. Let me just keep rolling on these. And do you have anything you want to chime in yet on, Joe, or should I just keep rolling?
No, keep rolling.
Okay. This is regards to Podnutz number 58. Aaron says, hi, I was listening to your most recent podcast and I wanted to share some insight. The method described to activate Windows 7 is completely legal, and the way the OEMs activate it is the way that OEMs activate in the factory. I found that you can actually use some of the programs to crack the activation in order to legally activate Windows 7. The activation process uses a combination of a certificate and an OEM key. These cracking programs have these certificates and keys in a database, and what I have found is you can use them in order to simply install the certificate and the OEM key. This sounds shady, but it's completely legal as Windows activation process is not modified in any way. Just wanted to share this bit of knowledge. I've used this on many clients and even on my own personal PC, and I never had a problem. Since it is the OEM process for activation, if Microsoft were to flag the keys or certificates, they would break literally thousands of legit OEM activations for new PCs. That's from Aaron. Thanks, Aaron. I'm actually going to read that on Podnutz as well as Podnutz Daily here. Let me just mark that. Sorry if you guys don't know exactly what these guys are referring to. I have to go back to in my mind. I got to figure out some way to make it more clear, but you get the gist. Right, Joe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are great emails.
Yeah. We got a ton more. Let me just read a few more till I just run out of breath and pass out, and that's when we'll end off. Because I have so many here. I got to get through some of these.
Absolutely.
Which I am happy that you guys are sending them. George says, hey, Steve, I was emailing in regards to a question asked on Podnutz Pro. Why did I put this in Podnutz Daily? Yeah, I'm going to put that in Podnutz Pro. We don't have to read that one. That will be Podnutz Pro. Next one is from Robin. On the last episode of Linux for the Rest of Us... Oh, gosh, why do I keep doing this? They're all marked Podnutz Daily. That's why I have so many of them. You know what? This one, I know why I didn't mark this at Podnutz Daily. Somebody mentioned making a Podnutz game. And if you guys listen to the other shows, you probably have heard us talking about on some of the other shows. I'm trying to cover all the shows with this. Go in the forums and see what's happening with the Podnutz game. It's just a baby right now, and there's nothing substantial, and ideas are just being thrown around. But if you have an interest in contributing to make a Podnutz game, it could be an RPG, it could be an MMORPG, it could be first-person shooter. I don't care. I just want to have a game with a bunch of the Podnutz regular guests in it and stuff like that. I think it would be fun. So if anybody's into that, go for it. Check it in the forums. I think that's where there's some action happening with it. What do you think about that, Joe? Think that'd be fun?
I love it. I love it. I would love to be able to see something like that.
I know. You're always curious how people are going to render your character. You know what I mean? So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, you have to be careful too.
I know. Okay. Next one is from Jeff. He says, Steve, a Dell Inspiron 700M laptop was brought in and a complaint was a flickering screen. At first I thought the person was nuts because it seemed to be working for me. Then I slightly bumped the display and I seen a flicker. It was more like the colors faded because the brightness stayed the same. This would only happen once in a while. With a little more experimenting, I was able to see this fading action by applying pressure to the display like I was going to close the lid, but without actually closing it. While I was keeping the pressure on, the color saturation slowly faded to white, but not completely. As I released the pressure on the lid, the color saturation returned to normal immediately. Again, this fading did not happen every time. I checked the signal cable connected to the motherboard, and it seemed to be fully connected. I didn't check the connection on the back of the LCD panel, but I'm guessing it's probably okay.